Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. We've got whiplash. I tell you what, this Trump administration never fails to surprise or ceases to amaze. President Trump is calling for the scaling back of nuclear power. He wants to enter into talks with Russia and China. What do you think about that? I, for one, applaud it. Think my panel will too, but many on the left are saying, no, 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 no. You're being sucked in by Putin. The doomsday clock has us closer to nuclear destruction than ever before. Don't we need to cool the tensions? What do you think? Let's talk about it, everybody. I want you to meet me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, and the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's the only place where I can get friends, everybody. And then the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Shalom to you, Robert. We are waiting to get everybody up here, but as you come in, you will be welcome. Let me read to you from this AP report. I think that they've been kicked out of the White House, but you have to take things where you can find them. President Donald Trump, according to this story, said Thursday that he wants to restart nuclear arms control talks with Russia and China, and that eventually he hopes all three countries could agree to cut their massive defense budgets in half. That includes the United States, everybody. Can you imagine cutting the defense budget in half? Have you heard a president talking like that? Is it something that should be applauded? Some people on the left, some progressives are saying, I don't believe it. And because he said it, I don't like it. What do you think about that? Is that the right approach? Oh, I think we've got our dear Mike Ferner, former director of the Veterans for Peace. Yay! As my nephew would say, yay, we got it. And then, I didn't speak too soon, of course, the co-founder, my shero. Not that I don't love you guys. Co-founder of Code Pink. She is not in jail right now. I'm so happy to report. And of course, the Global Exchange, the founder of that, the great Medea Benjamin. And of course, all of you are so great in your spaces. David Swanson, rootsaction.org, and of course, World Beyond War. We can have that. It is possible. Let me start with you, Medea Benjamin. What about this call to cut the defense budget in half, to enter into talks with China and Russia, the United States, to talk with these countries about scaling back on the nuclear arms race? What do you say about that?
I say let's applaud it. I think it's fantastic. Of course, we want action more than words, but words are a start. And he's going to begin by, he already talked to Putin and starting to try to wind down the war in Ukraine, which is fantastic, and to talk about wanting to reach a goal where the U.S. and China and Russia could cut their military spending by half is absolutely wonderful. So I'm very sorry that Democrats can't applaud something good that Trump is at least talking about. But those of us who care about where we spend our tax dollars and don't want to see $1 trillion of our tax money going to build weapons of mass destruction should get on board with this and really be encouraging Trump, because there are going to be many, not only the Democratic Party, but a lot of war hawks. And let's remember that so many people in Congress and officials in general get money from the weapons industry, that a lot of them are going to be pushing back. So he needs some wind behind his sails, and that would be us.
Do you think that's what's behind the pushback? Because really, we're hearing a lot of the leading voices on the left, certainly a lot of the leading voices in the Democratic Party who are against what he's doing.
And I think, I'm sorry, Santita.
No, I'm just saying just talk to me, because a broken clock can be right twice a day.
Right. And, if this were coming from Biden, they would applaud it. It's just party politics for them. So they don't want to give Trump any credit for even saying something good. But I think myself, David, Mike, and you, Santita, we know better that this is not about party politics. This is about the future of the planet. And when somebody in the White House is proposing something quite revolutionary, cutting the Pentagon budget by 50% and talks with China and Russia, we should all be behind that.
I think so. So what do you think, everybody? Please chime in. Let us know. Let us know what you think. David Swanson, World Beyond War. Wow. What did you think? What do you think of his proposal? What do you, his proposals to enter into these talks with China and Russia on denuclearization and he wants to sit down with them so that we can all discuss cutting our defense budgets in half. Wow.
Well, I think Medea is right. It's mostly party politics, but I don't think it can be all party politics, because if you wanted to criticize Trump and disagree with Trump, you could pick which Trump to criticize and disagree with. You could pick the one who wants to get rid of nukes and cut military spending in half, or you could pick the one who is demanding that countries spend 5% of their GDP on the military, who's got legislation in Congress to move hundreds of billions of dollars more from human needs to the military, who's funding nukes at an unprecedented clip, who tore up some of these treaties last time he was president that he wants to reinstate now, who's putting new nuclear weapons into Europe, who's threatening places like Gaza, who's had a penchant for threatening nuclear war. I mean, pick which Trump to criticize. I say go after the militarist Trump. Go after the we need all of our money to go into the military Trump, and praise the we need demilitarization and disarmament negotiations and cut military spending in half. Praise that Trump. But when there's a different Trump for every position, the fact that you're picking the peaceful one to criticize says something about you above and beyond party politics, says something about your lack of any principles, your corruption, your campaign bribery, because you can criticize Trump on horrible things. He does 10 of them every morning before breakfast. You don't have to criticize the one good thing where he's doing the exact opposite of what he's saying, and you've got an easy choice there.
But but I'm hearing a lot of people from whom we have a lot of respect, a lot of people with whom we've worked down through the years, who are telling us to do just that, David. They're saying that this is a bad idea, and as far as I can tell, it's simply because he suggested it.
You know what's a bad idea? Doing nothing, not talking with Russia or China at all. Joe Biden didn't do good diplomacy or bad diplomacy. He didn't do it. The Russian ambassador took off and left because no one would talk to him at all. That's bad. That's dangerous. That's how the doomsday clock got advanced and should have been advanced farther than it was. We are at risk of ending all life on Earth, and just talking with Russia, even excluding Ukraine, the country at issue, but just talking is a step forward beyond just a speech that may be full of lies. It's a step forward to do diplomacy of any sort. Now, it's got to be done in a way that Trump is very much disinclined to do if you're going to get a sustainable and lasting peace in Ukraine with justice for all. But it's a start. So, to say that that we're better off with Joe Biden's policy of pretending Russia can't be spoken with at all is insane if you're in favor of life continuing on Earth.
I'm trying to figure out why it is that before I pivot to you, Mike Ferner, I'm trying to understand why we're not supporting. You can't even make peace if you unless you talk to people. How does that work, David?
It doesn't. You have endless wars. You have endless heightening of tensions and growing risk of nuclear apocalypse, which affects all of us, not just Ukrainians. It shouldn't be just Ukraine involved, but it also shouldn't be just the president of Ukraine involved, who is supporting a minority position. The majority of people in Ukraine want negotiations and are willing to negotiate territory and prioritize ending the war. the president of Ukraine sides with a minority in the name of democracy. So yes, he should be involved, but the people of Ukraine should be involved. The people who live in the regions at issue should get to decide their fate, not Russia or the United States or Ukraine or any combination. But the notion that you could just go on forever with the war, pretending you couldn't talk at all, because the other side are monsters, this sort of, childish believing your own war propaganda nonsense, that was worse than at least talking. Now, Trump wants to destroy Gaza, evict all the Palestinians, increase military spending to 5% of GDP, and all the rest of this nonsense. So he has the potential to be dramatically worse than Joe Biden. But thus far, the steps of talking with people and talking about possibly making peace in places, those are steps forward.
And we need to take them, Mike Ferner. I mean, I've got President Trump suggesting that boots would go on the ground to take Gaza because it belongs to the United States and not the Palestinians. I will give it to you, Medea. I'm coming back to you. Trust me. Because when our heads pop, the top of our heads pop the other week, and then now he says, "Okay, denuclearization. I want to talk with China and Russia. We all need to come together and agree, or at least discuss, cutting our defense budgets in half." Whew. What do you make of that? Veterans for Peace. What in your space? What kind of? Are you surprised by what he said by this assertion?
Well, as David was saying, you can be surprised about what Trump says 10 times before breakfast every day. So, it was surprising, but it needs to be listened to. I mean, when was the last time we had somebody in the White House that said we should reduce nuclear weapons and military spending by half? Who knows what he's going to actually do? And probably as importantly, or even more importantly, frankly, what are the people who are really running the show going to let him do? So, last time we had a president that got serious about denuclearizing and getting out of Vietnam and treating emerging nations in Africa like human beings and sovereign states. They took them for a slow drive around Dealey Plaza. So, who knows what Trump is going to actually do or what he's going to be allowed to do. But I think the bigger point is, as both Medea and David said, anybody who cares about the planet, who cares about the ongoing survival of the planet and life on it, should seize this opportunity to say, damn right, you need to be reducing the military budget by half and talking with China and Russia about denuclearizing. I mean, after all, we've been saying that for how many years, and do whatever we can to hold them to it, but at least make sure that message gets repeated and not drowned out by partisan idiots, frankly. Anybody who is saying, just knee-jerk reacting, saying that if Trump is saying this, we're against it. I'm sorry, but as both Medea and David said, that does not bode well at all for life on the planet. So we need to, as the people's movements, we need to just jump into this space that's been created and say, hell yes, we need to be doing this. We should have done it a long time ago. We need to do it now. I mean, Obama, for God's sake, he was pushing $1 trillion worth of upgrades to our nuclear weaponry. Biden, David talked about what Biden didn't do while he was in there. So, the Democratic Party has got no room whatsoever to be complaining about something that Trump says. Now, who knows what he's going to do, what he'll be allowed to do, we don't know. But the point is, we need to get in there and say, yes, this is exactly what needs to be done. and also make sure that we don't reduce the military budget and give Elon Musk and his buddies another huge tax cut to make up for it.
But Mike Ferner, who knows what anybody's going to do? I mean, who would have thought we'd be in this position in Gaza under Biden? I mean, really? It's like he heard nothing that the American public were saying. Nothing.
No,
And now we've got
busy listening to the Israeli government.
Medea Benjamin, why don't you respond to Robert Williams? He says, I don't see good faith in Trump, Russia, or China because no one can trust Trump. Just a distraction from the lying Trump administration because most Americans are livid at Trump, including people like MAGA in Alabama whose electric subsidies are being canceled. And, I hear you. I mean, it's like you've got this, you've got that. But I'm wondering, if this should not be a la carte as opposed to just buying, the special, right?
Absolutely. I think this is what David was saying, and I couldn't agree more. There are so many reasons already. It feels like it's been months and months since Trump is in the White House. So many reasons to protest him. And there were lots of protests today called Not My President. But my question is also, was the last president your president while he was greenlighting genocide? And our job is to hold those in power to account, no matter who is in the office and no matter the issue. So we have to recognize that coming up this week are some very, very critical talks about Ukraine, a war that's been going on for almost 3 years now, with horrific deaths on the side of the Ukrainian people and the Russian soldiers, with the Ukrainian people, according to Gallup polls, saying the majority want a quick negotiated end and are open to territorial concessions. So we have to get behind that, because that's part of how do you reduce the $1 trillion that we're going to be spending in militarism if you don't stop all this money going for war. So the first thing we should get behind is negotiations there. And I can't remember the person who wrote in that comment. You don't have to trust Trump to be in support of negotiations. What we have to do, I think, is those of us who have more ability to influence the Democrats than the Republicans, is to get on them and say, we want you to come out in favor of negotiations. Don't be the war party. Have some morality, for goodness sake. You lost it in the last election by not coming out against the genocide. Don't keep that losing position going by being for a continuation of war in Ukraine, saying that it's in the best interest of Ukraine, when the Ukrainian people themselves say they are exhausted from 3 years of a brutal, horrible war. You condemn Putin and Russia all you want, but what we want to see is an end to that war, a decrease in militarization, and move us on a path of denuclearization. And if Trump is putting something on the table, let's gobble that up and ask for more.
Do you think that do you think that this means that he is trying to accelerate a negotiated peace settlement in Ukraine?
I think he definitely is. This is something he campaigned on. I mean, he's already broken his campaign promise for ending the war in 24 hours. But look, this is a start. It's not going to be easy. And let's face it, among those who are going to be pushing for a continuation of this war are many of our European allies and are many in the US, both the Republicans and the Democrats. And, we know that there's not one Democrat who has spoken up so far. I can't find one national official, and I'd love to know if any of your listeners have, that have said, yes, we need to bring that war to an end. So really, this is going to be a difficult negotiation for Trump for many reasons, but let's not make it even more difficult by opposing the entire concept of ending this war.
But Medea, I mean, no one is better at confront, literally, face-to-face, nose-to-nose, eyeball-to-eyeball confronting power. I'm wondering sometimes if we're not aiming, I'm going to open this question up to you, David Swanson, World Beyond War, and Roots Action, and to you, Mike Turner. We talked about the slow drive, the slow ride around the plaza. Wow. But that's a very real thing. I mean, what about all of these military contracts that are out here? Because Medea, like, that is how it works, right? There's a lot of money. What was it? Major Smedley Butler who talked about war as a racket. you know,
He did.
it. I mean, so if somebody tell me, I mean, because it's almost as if I can see people throwing up their hands saying, "Wait a minute, there's money to be made." It sounds horrible, but that's what's happening here, and we've got what at least 600,000 or 700,000 Ukrainians who've been killed. I mean, it's been a slaughter there.
You know, when Kennedy was killed, there was legislation in the Congress to do a transition from military spending to peace spending, with plans to compensate and retool and retrain. And there's so much money to be made in the switch to an economically more beneficial, not to mention morally more beneficial program, that not a single person has to suffer in the least. And so we ought to see some action, right? Talk is cheap. And Trump and his cronies in the U.S. Congress that do exactly what he demands of them are pushing legislation to take huge amounts of what's left in human and environmental needs and move it into militarism, increase military spending, get us up to 60-70% of our tax dollars going into military spending. The least you could do, if you're going to pretend you want to cut it in half, is to not significantly increase it. You could push some legislation to cut it in half. That would be a start, right? The United States military spending is vastly more than China and Russia combined. It's as much as almost the rest of the world combined. And it could start unilaterally with small cuts and then see what Russia and China do. Russia and China's nuclear weapons are vastly more than China's. China has already said, okay, great, you guys go first because you got way more than we do. Well, that's another thing Kennedy did. He said, I'm going to stop the nuclear tests. Let's see if you'll do it too. Unilaterally. George H.W. Bush
Mhm.
did it too, took nuclear weapons out of Europe. Let's see if you do it too. And they did, right? Because there's no trust left in the world. Never mind US citizens trusting Trump. Russia doesn't trust Trump. China doesn't trust Russia. US doesn't trust China. There's no trust. So you got to do it unilaterally. And when you're using nonsense weapons that serve no purpose, the whole basis for which is to have them in order to not use them, there's nothing to be lost and all those resources for useful things to be gained, and the increased likelihood of surviving on this planet to be gained by unilaterally cutting back the nuclear weapons. Do it. Do it. Cut some of them and see what Russia and China do. They will follow suit. I guarantee it.
Well, I mean, explain what Kennedy was doing. I mean, now, and Medea and Mike, starting with you, David, because now we're about to, they found what, 2,400 more pages related to the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
Only heaven knows what they're going to show us, because they've had 61 years to manipulate everything. But it is. Well, Americans don't believe anything about this, but I think the more that we find out about John Kennedy, it really, the scale of the tragedy is becoming more and more clear to us because
Well,
of the things that he was seeking to do. What about this shift away from war to peace? Can you explain
he
that?
wanted disarmament with the Soviet Union. He wanted to
Mhm.
go to the Soviet Union. He wanted things that the military industrial complex could not stand. He was not your ideal pacifist, but he was way too peaceful for those guys. The proof that he killed them, we don't have. That they killed him, we don't have that. But we have decades of many, many people, presidents, Congress members, and everybody else in Washington suspecting it. And that has done tremendous damage. You've heard, secondhand from presidents and firsthand from various Congress members, I don't want to be the next Kennedy.
Yeah.
Right? They believe it, along with the majority of the US public, whether it's ever proven or not, whether Trump ever releases more papers or not, whether they're totally redacted or not. He promised this last time he was president, just like he promised to end the war in Afghanistan and all kinds of other things. Who knows what'll come out? But we know that the damage has been done, that people suspect that if you get too far toward peace, you're going to be killed, or you're going to have dirty tricks played on you. You're going to have an October surprise. You're going to have Nixon tell the Vietnamese not to make peace. The military is very, very strong, and I think they love having the documents be secret as long as people suspect what's in them, because we don't know what's in them. But this is what we need, is for the country and the world to push people in Washington the way they pushed Kennedy, because he didn't take all those steps for peace alone. There were protests, there were demonstrations, there were meetings, there were boycotts, there were marches. He was feeling pressure from people who were more active than we are now. Some of us, like Medea Benjamin, are super active. Most people are shopping and watching football as the Titanic goes under, right? So we need to be pushing Trump forward when he says something good, backwards when he says something bad, and Congress with him, regardless of party. They got to drop that. Nobody cares about their stupid parties. We need them to stand up for peace and justice and the rule of law.
Medea, David makes a point. More and more Americans don't care about the parties. They don't. They want action. But many of us, my father often says that, people have forgotten how to fight. I said, people also, some of us don't want to. But we need to know how to. I think it's a mix. You tell me what it is that you see, because I think that now it seems that, the zeitgeist is calling people to do something. Ugh.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Santita, it's going in this partisan direction. And I feel for people who are losing their jobs because Doge is going after the wrong things instead of going. Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Instead of going after the Pentagon, they're going after all kinds of programs that actually do good things. So people are fighting for their jobs, and they're also, like the protest today, not my president, it's going after Trump, the individual, rather than the specifics of the programs. And so I see groups that really were not around in the last 4 years, that we tried to get to join us in protesting genocide, for example, and couldn't bring themselves to do that. And now they're the ones calling people out to protest in front of this government bureau, this government office. And, I go to most of them because I like a good protest, and and I pick and choose, which things I'm for. But when I go there, I see the people, and they are partisan. They are Democrats. And I think we've got to learn that this is not about partisan politics, and we will never have the massive changes we need in this country if we allow ourselves to be swayed every 4 years from one side to another side and think that that's where our salvation lies. So that's why I think this conversation we're having now is so important, because we need your listeners, your viewers. We need people who consider themselves, Democrats or progressives or leftists or whatever they want to call themselves, to recognize that there are some good things being put forward by this administration right now. And we've been naming them. They're very few. And they are exactly the try to wind down the war in Ukraine and go for denuclearization. Those are things we all need to get on board. So let's make our protests be around policy and not around partisan politics.
Mike Ferner, what do you, in the military community, what are you hearing? Is there, the polls are showing us that Americans are, have lost the appetite for war more and more. I mean, what are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Well, a lot of people in the military are losing their appetite for being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
There has been significant numbers of active duty military people who, since realizing what this genocide in Palestine is about and who's paying for it, have gotten completely uh, disgusted with what the military tells them they should be doing. So any number of them have applied for conscientious objector status. More of them are speaking out in a variety of ways. So that's already going on right now. Um, as far as whether or not it's going to be enough to have an impact on what military plans the administration might have, like the wholesale throwing in the towel that happened uh, by GIs in Vietnam. Um, we don't know if if there's going to be enough of that. If Trump decides he's going to start sending troops to Palestine, for example, to enforce his Riviera on the Mediterranean, he may have a big surprise because there are going to be a whole lot of people that are going to be ordered to go that aren't going to go. But I think, I've been reading the comments on
Mm-hmm.
some of the talk show hosts uh, and that have brought up this denuclearization and talking with Russia and China.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. It is really amazing. And these aren't all lefty progressive Democrats even. This is a spectrum of people, and the people who are writing in to these shows when they're talking about this, you can tell they are desperate for this. They over and over. I mean, dozens and hundreds of comments. Some from people, ex-military, current military, who are saying, "You're damn right. This is exactly what we should be doing, and stop using military members as pawns." And other people who appear like they're not in the military but are just expressing an opinion on this are practically in tears, saying, "My God, thank you. This is exactly what we should be talking about." So what Medea and David are saying, I couldn't agree with more. We just need to amplify this and tell anybody from whatever political party they're in to cut the nonsense and look at the ideas that are being put on the table and judge them based on whether or not those ideas are going to do something for humanity and the planet. And please, for a change, forget your partisan interests.
Well, I mean, or should I say their oligarchical interests? Because I don't understand. Both parties stand for the oligarchs. They just have different cultural arguments, as far as I can see. I was just at the
Quite a
DNC.
bit.
I mean, I was just at the DNC, Medea and David and Mike, and I wasn't disappointed because I've seen what they do and how they do. I was angered because I see many people now that my father's older and he's been he's got Parkinson's, so he's in a wheelchair now. And so you see it almost like the Muhammad Aliization of Jesse Jackson, because his speech is impaired and he's the acceptable one now because we can't really hear from him, right? I mean, 'cause that's how David, that's how it works, it.
Yeah.
And what angers me is how the Democrats are trying to use him, Medea, because we didn't run on war. We ran on peace. We ran advocating for Palestinians and for the Israeli community. Because we said, this is the way God does it. He locks us all in together. Lions and lambs have to lie down together. It's hard to let you know that, folks. This is how it works. Because you're really two different sides of the same coin, like it or not. That's the way life is. What is bothering me is this hyper partisanship here, David Swanson. Because I do believe that we can, Medea, have a world beyond war. As a matter of fact, Dr. King told us, David, that if we didn't do that, this house that's on fire, everybody's going to get burned up and nobody's going to survive. So
Well,
how do
we're
you make the case? I mean, because if you've been at that DNC meeting, you and I, Mike, Medea, David, and Santita would have been thrown out.
oh yeah, proudly. Medea
Oh,
would have
trust me, I was there. We would have.
Medea would have been thrown out and made international news doing it.
That's right.
And
I
we would
think
be better off for it, because these are people who are telling you that what we need to fix the Democratic Party is to work with the good billionaires who can be trusted to back Democrats. They've lost all conception. It can't even get into their skulls that there's no such thing as a good billionaire, that hoarding wealth that could save millions of lives is evil. It's not even within their comprehension, right? And they aren't having meetings to propose that they end wars or fund schools or save Social Security or protect the environment for the future of life on the planet. They're having meetings to decide where they should do better outreach, what they should make as better press releases and videos and announcements, how they should spin the same old differently. They think that's all they need to talk about. I have no use for that any more than I have for the Republicans. I think we need to go with the majority of people in this country and abandon this loyalty to a political party and this across the board blanket childish opposition to everything from the other party, because once in a while there's something that might be good from that other party, and you have to push for it. That's the whole topic here. There also could be infinitely bad things coming from this other party, and things are going to change dramatically every day now. And if they do send U.S. troops to any of these wars, you're going to find Republicans and Democrats dramatically shifting. You can't kill those people. The other 96% of humanity is fair game, but you put that 4% of humanity on the line, it changes everything. The other thing you're going to see from the Democrats is Russiagate 2.0. We're going to get new evidence that Trump is owned by Putin. It's coming, because this is what they think you do. You don't figure out how to be part of saving life on Earth and getting rid of the nuclear weapons. They think you got to figure out how to prove that, and they probably believe it's true, that Donald Trump works for Vladimir Putin. So that's coming.
Yeah, but Medea, that Russiagate was a lie. I'm offended by that. And I knew it was a lie in real time. I'm like, you know what? Run your race. What you need to do is not just campaign in California. How about that part? What Trump did in 2016 and what he did in 2024 was he went to the places where he was told not to go. That, I saw Reverend do it. They told him not to go. Why even bother going to Iowa, Jesse Jackson? Why? He said, because people are there. They may or may not vote for me, but if I don't go, I know that they won't. I know if I don't go, they won't hear the message that we, the rainbow, have. So I got to go. And you know what? He made a difference. You got to talk to people, Medea. You've got to. And I'm just trying to find, I mean, I'm seeing us siloed. We're stuck. And it's not helping. It's not helping our politics. And more than that, it's not helping people at all.
Well, I totally agree that we've got to talk to people that are not in our little bubble. I go to Congress almost every day, and I get a chance to see people, even in the halls of Congress, like happened last week, people with MAGA hats, and we stop and talk to them. And we've had some of the greatest conversations with people who've been in prison for years since January 6th, telling us their side of the things that happened. Mm-hmm. And we find common ground. We find common ground that we don't want to be divided for the sake of the oligarchs. We want to find ways that we can work together to make our country and our world better. And Santita, when you talk about talking to other people, whether it's going into the rural areas where the Reverend went into and they told him it wasn't worth his time, or it's talking to people who call themselves MAGA, or it's talking to people in other parts of the world, especially leaders. It's all about dialogue. And as David said, you can't do diplomacy until you talk to people. And I remember when Obama was on the campaign trail and he would say, you have to talk to foreign leaders, he would get the loudest applause, just like when Trump was on the campaign trail and talked about making peace, he would get the largest applause because people don't want war. And I think that, if we could get that across to both parties, if we could get people to be advocating for constant talking the way the Reverend went around and did that and showed us the example, that's what people want. That's the unifying ticket. And that's what neither party gives us.
But do you think that's what the oligarchs are really pushing against? They have been since we've been here.
The oligarchs, the weapons manufacturers. I mean, I think Kamala Harris got twice as much from the weapons industry as Trump did. So as David and Mike have been saying, it's different oligarchs, but it's still the oligarchs. And we've got to move ourselves away from thinking that Elon Musk can save us if you're a Republican and think that. Or if you're a Democrat and think that the Democratic oligarchs are the ones that we should be listening to. But that does mean people power. And it's a tough time for us now because of the hugely partisan nature of the way our politics are. But when we can push ourselves beyond our little bubbles, our comfort zones, the people we're happy talking to, we find something very interesting out there. And I think that's going to be our salvation.
Didn't we see that with Uncommitted in Michigan? I mean, throughout the country. I mean, in the primary season, because you had Republicans who were crossing over to vote with Uncommitted. And when I acknowledged that, more than a few Democrats became angry with me, David Swanson and Medea Benjamin. And I was like, wait a minute, it's a win. We want the genocide to end. I mean, stop. What's wrong with that? I mean, and I think that there is a fear that people will come together, that the right and the left will find some agreement. That's why, going in the halls of Congress and walking up and down the street and seeing people with MAGA hats, you're not my enemy. You're not.
Yeah. I think people are going to find common ground where Medea suggests, in opposition to the oligarchy, in opposition to the billionaires and the ripoffs and the endless wars. We're not going to rise up for most of the things that Michael Moore's email yesterday suggested might be the trigger for us rising up. We're not going to rise up to defend the FBI from criticism. That's not going to be the thing. It's going to be for economic justice. It's going to be for environmental justice. It's going to be for peace. And this legislation, they call it reconciliation of all absurdities, but this type of legislation they're going to push through Congress in the coming weeks and months to move piles of our money out of anything good left in the U.S. government into the military machine. It's a disaster, of course, but it's an opportunity, because usually, we talk, Santita, about the next military spending bill, and they've put some nice little thing in there that nobody wants to vote against. This is going to be the worst piece of legislation ever heard of. It's going to be everything bad piled on. It's going to be stripping money from everything good, and student loans and green energy and housing and schools, and it's going to be piling it into everything evil, wars and deportations and drilling and all the rest of it. If we can't get Democrats to oppose that and actually try to be effective and actually stop it, when it's a Republican effort and it's everything they claim to be against piled in together without any silver linings, then they ought to just close up shop and find some other line of work.
I mean, Medea, how do we organize in this environment? I mean, because people have really hunkered down into their spaces, when I think this is a real opportunity for us to reach beyond party and reach into principle. How do you make that case?
I think this issue of military spending, of grotesque military spending, is something that can unite us and we can organize around. We've been saying for years that you can't have universal health care if you're spending what's now $1 trillion on the military and national, quote, national security. You can't have really, you can't fight the environment while you're doing this. But now it's becoming so clear, especially when there's this Doge that is going around from agency to agency, and they tell us that they're going to go after the Pentagon. But I don't understand how that can happen if they're just about to pass this huge Pentagon budget. So I do think that pushing for the massive cuts, and if Trump can just come out there and say that we could cut the military budget in half, and obviously he's not saying the world would end and the US would be taken over by China or Russia, that gives us quite an opening to say that there's like $500 billion waiting right there to be used to make the US better and the world a better place and combat the climate issues. So I think we have a lot of elements for organizing.
Well, I mean, what do you think, David Swanson? I mean, Roots Action, they've been ahead of the curve, and Roots Action, God bless all of you, Jeff Cohen, Norman Solomon, and Indy, and all, and Seth, and all the people over there. Because we're all together. I mean, I love that Roots Action has been bold. I mean, 2 years before the election, they said, Joe Biden, you need to come through on your promise. Declare that you're not running. You said you were going to be a transitional president. Do that, because Trump is growing in strength. He's not lost any gas. My mother was driving. Both my grandmothers passed away within the past 10 years, and my parents still have their houses. So, just trying to unload lifetime of homes is a whole lot to do. And so my mother goes from their home in Washington and she drives down to Virginia and then South Carolina. And she called, maybe it was 2022, 2023. It was a little piece before the election. And she said, I want you to know something. I said, what is that? She said, Trump is strong. I said, okay. She said, no. I don't want you to miss this, because you're out here, you're on the radio, you do all this, you do that. She said, but I'm not flying over the states. I'm driving through them. I'm stopping at the restaurants. I'm seeing the decals in the cars. I'm talking to people. I don't want you to think that he's weak, and I want you to know that a lot of people like him for a whole lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
You need to understand that David Swanson is not a one and done.
You know who else was strong was Bernie, and he was ahead of Trump in all the polls, and they said we would rather lose. We would rather lose
The
than
Democrats
run him.
said that.
The Democrats, yes, the Democrats would rather lose again than stop a genocide. There are things they care about more than winning. The Roots Action has been a friend to the Democrats, has been the friend who says, I'm going to take the keys. You're drunk. You're not going to drive right now. And they've gone out and, got a beer truck, and then drove that instead. They don't want that kind of friendship. And they need it now more than ever. It'd be nice.
But they didn't take him out. They went out with Liz Cheney.
Yeah. They this is their priorities. They would rather ignore public opinion. They would rather lose than say, we have the polling. It's overwhelming since the election, establishing that Kamala Harris only had to say, I want to end the war on Gaza. Just those words. And she would be president, and she would rather have lost than do that. And it'd be nice if, like, the definition of expert in U.S. culture had anything to do with ever having been right, because Code Pink, Roots Action, World Beyond War, these would be your experts, right? Instead, all you have to do is be wrong over and over and over again to get promoted in U.S. culture and in U.S. government. What has Elon Musk ever done worth anyone's praise? Nothing that I'm aware of. Nothing. Dreamed up the ugliest car ever imagined. This is a guy who contributes nothing to our society, and we're supposed to praise him. I think we need, these people to be strong, not just by being cruel and being bigots and being xenophobes, but be strong enough to stand up to the military industrial complex, be strong enough to stand up to the Israel industrial complex, be strong enough to stand up to the people who call the shots in Washington. You're gonna drain the swamp. Whatever happened to that? And now he's gonna drain Gaza. He's forgot all about draining the swamp. I think we should be deciding what counts as strength around here.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Medea Benjamin. I mean, because what is strength, really?
Well, I was just thinking when David was talking about the Ukrainians I see in Congress, and I have tremendous sympathy for Ukrainians because they got invaded and they've been fighting for territory that they want back. But I see the ones in Congress, and I know I've talked to them. They're being paid for by our tax dollars. They're being brought here from Ukraine to go around to Congress to say, let's not end this war. Let's keep fighting. So we're paying the people who want to take our tax money. And it's almost $200 billion now that we've sent to this war in Ukraine, one that you can't win on the battlefield. And we're paying for the propaganda. We're paying for the lobbyists. So it's really quite remarkable how this cycle works and how hard it is to break through, and how, of course, the mainstream media, whether you're talking to Fox News or you're listening to someone like Rachel Maddow on MSNBC telling you that the world will end if we talk to Russia and if they manage to come to a negotiated solution. So, it's interesting, David, you said there's a lot of money to be made in peace and conversion and moving from, this military to companies that do something to combat the climate crisis. But they're going to be moved kicking and screaming, and the ones that are going to move them are us. And we're going to have to fight against our own government, the lobbyists that we pay for, and all of these forces that seem insurmountable at some point are going to be surmountable just because the future of the planet does depend on it. So I always go to what your father said and keep telling myself to keep hope alive, because that's what keeps me going every day, is thinking that more and more people are going to wake up and recognize that the gravy train of this militarism will only lead us to Armageddon, just like the Christian evangelical Zionists want Armageddon. So we do have the legacy of the Reverend and the Rainbow Coalition, and what it stood for, I think, is something that it really continues to be inspiring.
Well, and Jeff and Norman, these people have been working together for decades. It's that is Reverend, but it's just so many people. It's a group it's a very special moment in time in which we have all been brought together. It happened then, and I think it's happening now. And
we had that religious component that the Reverend gave us. And now we do have the Poor People's Campaign, but, and I don't shouldn't say anything bad, but I wish they'd be stronger on the militarism issue, stronger on the negotiations issue. They're so strong on other issues, but we need that multi-faith component, that spiritual component as well.
Well, because the Poor People's Campaign, of course, that was Dr. King's last campaign. And who was the mayor of Resurrection City, the Synod on the Mall? Reverend Jackson. And it was a religious component. And I think my father bogarted hundreds of the people who popped up the tents on the lawn on the mall, and he took them into the Senate dining room. And he just told them, get everything you want to eat. And when the bill came, they said, well, who's going to pay for it? He said, it's paid for. The taxes. Everybody eat. Come on.
Oh, I love that
Right
idea.
on.
We should do that now. Great
We
idea.
should do it now. We should do it now. I mean, the thing
Absolutely
is,
great idea.
we have everything to gain. We have
Brilliant.
everything to gain. I saw him. They put him in some truck, arrested him. He was like, it was the right thing to do. We're the ones who have to make this work. I mean, we've seen it. You know, I think we can not only envision a world beyond war, David Swanson, we can make it happen. It's right here. That's why I want to unearth. I want you to come back so we can continue to talk about what John Kennedy was pushing to do. Because, you know, because I'm not afraid. To me, what's worth. I mean, look, we're all going to get out of here. Okay, you start leaving the day you get here. What's someone trying to take me out or taking me out? That's not the awful thing. The awful thing is if I do not stand up and live while I'm here. We have to do the work. We have to do the work. David Swanson, what do you want us to know before we go? Because I think that even in this chaotic time, I feel a lot of hope. I really do.
Well, there are a lot of ways to get involved, and wherever you are, there are local events happening. There are local chapters of every good group, and if they're not, you can form a new one easily. There is no reason for anybody not to be active right now. And you've got just about every horrible thing the Democrats were doing still happening without the pretense. You know, we've still got genocide without the humanitarian lies going along with it. So if you can't get active now, when they're, because you know what, no president's going to save us, no Congress is going to save us. The people have to compel the governments to do the right thing, and we only get them to do a little bit of the right thing with massive efforts, but that's what we have to do. And that's what was happening when Kennedy was president. I appreciated Medea's question. If this guy is not my president, who the hell was? I mean, I haven't lived through my president yet. I've lived through my friends and my neighbors and my people and my allies and my organizations. These we've got, you know, and these are what we have to use to make one of these presidents and one of these Congresses and some of these courts a little bit ours, as much ours as we can.
Well, you know what, they are ours. We just have to decide that. Look, whether you voted for Donald Trump or not, he's the president, not Elon Musk. Just we have to. I mean, but the Washington Post, of course, refused to publish an advertisement that said "Fire Elon Musk." So how free are they?
Yeah.
Who are they? I mean, we have to go beyond these normal channels, which people are doing.
I think we got to get clear about what you can buy. You can buy Congress. You can buy the Washington Post. You can buy the LA Times. You cannot buy Greenland or the Panama Canal or Canada. You cannot buy the Gulf of Mexico. And you cannot buy the United States public or the people of the world. We aren't one of those things. You can buy the mayor of New York City. You cannot buy the people of New York City. Is a big difference, right? And we got to teach these people that there are some things besides love that you cannot buy.
Medea Benjamin, you want to say something to close us out? Besides love that you cannot buy, David Swanson. Ouch. Okay. I'll take that.
Well, also, you can't buy happiness, and I think happiness does come from being active, being involved. I encourage your viewers to go to codepink.org, World Beyond War, Veterans for Peace. Check us out. Join us as you'll get our information, our alerts, and be part of the activism community. And that will make you feel a lot better about the next 4 years, which are going to be very difficult ones.
You know, and on the other side of crisis, the Chinese symbols shows us opportunity. And the beautiful thing is it's going to compel us to talk to each other. We're going to be compelled to step on the other side of the hallway in Congress. They're not that wide. And talk to the people in MAGA and understand, wait a minute, I want to hear your side of the story about January 6th. I'm willing to do that. because they do have a story. We've got to stop demonizing everybody. Got to stop that. We have to start listening to everybody.
Absolutely. And that's just what you said. They're afraid of us coming together,
Yeah.
but that's precisely what we're going to do.
Well, let me know. I'd love to talk to some of these. I'd love to talk to some of these people from January 6th and hear what their experiences were. I'm open to that.
Well, I'm going to send you two wonderful people
Okay.
for you to talk to, because it would be mind blowing to have them on your show.
I believe that. I believe that. And what you say, Lisa, start in your own city. And I think we should start in our own cities. And you know what? First, let's start in our own homes. I read the Daily Mail every day, and I see stories about people's homes imploding every single day. We're not kind to each other, Lisa. Just, we're not. We're not kind to each other. There's a mean spiritedness that's coursing throughout our country and throughout the world, but there's also kindness and love. And kindness, love is going to win. Love has already won. So, you're right. We need to check out our cities, but we need to check out our homes. We need to check out our own hearts. And we have to make a decision on this day, we have to decide the kind of society we want. Do we want a peaceful world and a just society? Yes or no? There's no gray there. I'm not going to argue with anyone about President Trump being President Trump. He is that. I got that. I have no truck with that. My person didn't win. He's the president. I respect that. Where I agree with him, I will support him. Where I disagree with him, I will fight. Not him, but I will fight for my side, for the issue. And that's just where I am on this. Let's lift this above the personal. Let's get to the principle. And then we're going to be all right. You're right. When we don't have God in our hearts, there's no love, there's no peace, and we need to bring God back. Let's make God fashionable again. Let's bring God back. Let's really know God and know that God is just, and know that God belongs to all of us, and God is in everyone. Just know that. We know religions. We know colors. God does not know any of that. God knows us. God knows our hearts. So let's start being kind to each other. And let's just start loving each other. That's the commandment. It's not a suggestion. God did not tell us in my Bible, in our Bible, that belongs to all of us, whether you want to read it or not. Didn't say, like each other. The commandment, Medea, is to love. It's not a suggestion. It's the commandment, because when you love people, even if they drive you crazy, you will embrace them because you love them. Can you say Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner? Yeah, that part. So let's get on over there. And my Shiro, but dear Benjamin, I cannot thank you enough. I just love you and admire you, and I follow you. And I thank God for all that you are, and all that you've done and all that you continue to do.
Thank you so much, Santita. This was a great discussion. Much love to you and
Oh,
your
much
listeners
love.
and viewers. Bye-bye.
Oh, much love and many blessings, and much love to you, Lisa, and Carol and Robert and Renee. Everybody, that's right, Renee. The Washington Post is owned by an oligarch, and if they have their interests. And so we're going to have to make some decisions about what it is that we want in our society. We've let them take over. Now we have to take our country back. We have to take our world back. Think about that. I love you, everybody. I will see you tomorrow morning. I'm going to talk with Jefferson Morley from the JFK files. I'm going to talk about that and how important the release of these tapes. And I'm going to talk with Lisa Pease, who has been probably the preeminent investigator into the RFK murders, which are connected to the MLK murders and the JFK murders. Oh, we're going to have quite the day tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. I'm sending you so much love. Much love to you, my sister Lisa. You know I love you, girl. Got you. I can't wait to see you tomorrow morning. We'll be on pretty early at 8:30 in the morning, Central Standard Time. Yes. And then a little bit later tomorrow. Yes. I love you, everybody. Love you. All right, Lisa. And all right, my morning stars, I love you. That's right. That's right. Love you. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. God bless.